everyone, welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful. I am back today. I just uploaded the first video showing how I'm going to create this little journal. And so I'm ready to move on to the next spot. So if you have not watched the first video, I will put a link down below and then you can see how I got to this point. Okay, so I'm using my little vintage book cover. I have my spine all ready to go. Is when I put this together, and then I've got my inside fabric that I'm going to use. I've already attached the little strip that I need to sew my signatures in, and I'm going to actually sew these on camera today. I don't usually do this, but it's such a small little one, it shouldn't take too long. So I've got, that's how I'm going to attach them. In the last video, I just did the first signature. I showed you how I select my papers for this one. I try to do them all a little bit different, but I've got this one together, and I had to make sure I had these trimmed within, so they're the width that I want. And then some of them I went ahead and made pockets. I did that on camera. I went ahead and finished this other side. I have my little tuck here. This one was fine. This one was okay. This isn't, and I realized was an actual old map. I reinforced it by gluing that down, and made my little notch here, but I'm not gonna do the gussets and attach because this is also nice writing space. So whoever ends up with this may or may not want this to be a pocket. They may want to have some paper attached where it flips out even more. So I'm gonna leave that up to the person that gets this. This one I reinforced by adding another little page here. Okay, then this one again, I just opened that seam up so that it can be a flip down place to write. This one was okay. These were all okay. So that was it for the first one. I did that on camera, but I finished it up. And then I went through and did these, so I'll just go through real quick so you can see what I did. I have some tape that I've made. I've shown this in previous videos where I keep a little thing and I use my recycled sticker backing for my shipping stickers. And I take some matte Scotch tape and I just tape it onto my sticker paper so that it's easy to remove then. And I can reuse these. And then I use Distress Oxide. You can use different colors. I'm using Vintage Photo. And I just dirty that up so that it looks like, you can't see it really well on this camera, but it looks like aged tape. You know how tape will yellow over time? If you like that vintage look and you're using old book pages, but you need to repair, that's a handy thing to have. So I just keep a little envelope of that. So for this one, rather than using any washi tape or anything else like that, I did just use this tape, but you can see how by doing the Vintage Photo on it ahead, it gives it that aged look. So I've done that. And otherwise, I want to leave these. I really like how some really old books are bound. And so it didn't really change the integrity of the fold. So I like leaving that there for texture. And then let's see. This, again, because it was a blank page, it could be nice writing. So I went ahead and made the slip so you can flip that down and then add whatever you want to it. This one was really pretty fragile, this piece here. It's some old music from a little church music book. And again, you can see how old it is by how it was bound. But it was pretty fragile. So I did go and reinforce just one side. I didn't do the other side with the tape. This, because it was thin and the edge, you know, was pretty fragile. I think even in here, I put some tape on the inside first to reinforce this edge. And then I took a separate piece from my scrap pile of some of the map and did it on the outside, partly because this book is so old. I don't know if you can really see it because I tried to hide it, is these pages were not even printed straight on the paper. And when it folded over, it made it really noticeable for this, how crooked this music sheet was. So I just glued that map. It gave it reinforcement, and then it kind of hid how crooked that was. So I like that. Same thing here, just reinforced again, and then I've already glued that using my art glitter glue to do those edges. And then let's see what's next. This one was just some receipt tea stained. That was okay. This is old, but it's in pretty good shape, so I didn't reinforce that. This is some tea stain. It's actually a newer book. I mean, it's a newer book of old vintage clothing, and so I tea stained all those pages too. So they look kind of old, but they're new. They're pretty new, probably from the, I don't know, 70s or 80s maybe. So that's in good shape. I left this one, instead of making this one a pocket, I left it as a flip down because it reveals the ladies' dresses. So you can do whatever you want with that. This one was super fragile. I almost took it out, but I really liked the fact that it said when a white ribbon is used, because there's clothing on this side. I just thought it was cute, so I wanted to use it. It came out of the Encyclopedia of Etiquette, which is one of the books that I have actually recycled the cover already. I think that one sold. I think it's gone. Anyway, so I needed to reinforce this one a lot. So I put my tape here. I did it on the other side. It's still kind of fragile. I had some kind of, I don't know if there was an actual tear here, I guess. So I put some more tape on this edge. You can see this edge is fragile. I'm going to leave it and let you do what you want. But I did go ahead and put a piece of white ribbon on this edge and then a piece of lace on this edge and glued that down. I'm not going to do this other edge. I'll let you do what you want there, but this is where you would want to maybe reinforce an edge because it's so fragile, and by you putting a tab or something like that in it. So I've done one side for you. Then some tea stained manila paper. That was okay. This is from an old book, but it's okay. Again, new paper, so it's good. And then this was that center one that I refolded to make it a little narrower. And I went ahead and I didn't want to trim anything off of it. So I just, because of the way I folded it, it had a nice place for a tuck here. So I glued that down. And then if I don't cut this center, then it already is a pocket. So I've gone ahead and left that way. Did not, so all I had to do is glue this side. And instead of cutting this little flap off, I just tucked it in on itself. So it's now a pocket and then a little tuck too. And I did that on both sides. So that one is ready to go. And you can see why that takes a while, because each page may tell you something different that you want to do with it. This was one of my print to digitals. This is a print of a digital of a map, really from an old book, and I just love how old that is. It's just its natural patina. It's in pretty good shape considering how old it is, so I'm gonna just leave that as it is. This is just some packing paper that I ironed, and this one's an old book, but it's in pretty good shape. Some graph paper. This was from an old book, and I actually, sometimes when I have my whole thing of folios that I just pull from, sometimes I've already put the tape or something on them. I try not to do that because depending on what journal they're going into, I may want to use something different, but this one already had the old tape, so it worked out fine. Some old music that's been tea stained. I could glue these and leave them, but I thought I'm going to leave this for the person. They may want to do some more flip outs from there. So I'm not gluing those. And these were all in pretty good shape, so I didn't have to do anything. Here I did go ahead, because it is lined paper. They could be pockets, which would be really cute, but I think you'll want to reinforce them a little bit maybe, or put gussets on them if you do. So I went ahead and just cut this slit so that at least they're not stitched in as a pocket. You have some options. So that is that one. So now we're just ready to put these into our journal. That's how quick that is, okay? So that took me just a little bit. So we have 3 signatures. I have my little piece cut here. I have marked it on the top. I don't need this for right now, so I'm gonna set that out of my way. So what I wanna do is make my marks for where my signatures are gonna go. You can measure, you can just eyeball it, whatever you wanna do. I'm going to use this. You can use a folded up towel or something. And this is just some recycled material, that packing material. So it's really handy because it's cushy. So you can see I use it to poke my holes. So I'm going to lay this here. I do have, if you watch my videos for a long time, you know I do have a bookbinding thing that has a little template, but I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to measure with a ruler. So I have 3 signatures. So what I want to do is have 3 lines this way. So I'm going to find the center. I know this is an inch. So actually, if I use this sewing ruler, I like this sewing ruler because it has 1/4 inch increments this direction too. So it's really nice to line everything up straight. So you see it's an inch wide, but I want to make a mark at the 1/2 inch. And this doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but you know, it's nice if they're evenly spaced. So I've made 1 line. I'm going to do one at a 1/4 inch because I need 3 lines. And then same thing on the other side. Okay, so now I have my 3 lines drawn. That's where my signatures are going to go. So now I need to make lines this way. And what I'm going to do is, I like to do 5 holes. Some people just do, for a book this size, you could do 3 holes. I like to do 5 only because sometimes I have shorter papers, and I know I have some in here. That way they get captured too because they're not this tall. So I'm going to go ahead and do 5. It's just been kind of my rule of thumb. Plus everything stays in a little tighter. Nothing gets shifty this way. So I'm going to go ahead and I like to do maybe a 1/2 inch up for my first one. You could do a 1/4 if you have some, if most of your pages are really long, but I might have some that are just a little short, so 1/2 inch might be good. And then from this end I want to do 1/2 inch. I want to do one in the middle, so I'm going to call this, I'm going to shift my ruler so that it's kind of 6 1/2, so that would make the center 3 1/4. And then just do this so I could make it straight. Okay, so now I have 3 and I need 2 more, so I'm just going to split that in half. So that is 2 3/4. So that would be 1 1/2 inches minus 1/8. So 1 notch, and then make my lines this way. So you don't have to be exact. You could just eyeball this if you want. It's not gonna show. Nobody's gonna go and measure your book to make sure they're exact. But if you ended up having your lines wonky like this, the important thing is, as you punch your holes in your signatures, that you keep them in a certain order and know where the top is, so that they're not off, so that they all kind of line up the way you want them to. Okay, so I need a hole where all those little cross marks are. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and punch through this, and then I'm just going to use this as my template. And you can see I might be wobbling. That's why it's important when you do your actual signatures that you use this template, because it is not perfect. If I were using my plastic template for my bookbinding kit, that would be exact. Okay, so you can see where I have all my little holes, but they might not be perfectly lined up. Okay, so I know now when this, I know where my top is, so it's actually going to go this way, which means my book here is going to go this way. This is the first one, which on this side is really the last one. So you just need to remember that so that you have them in the right order. So I would take this one, find my center, make sure you have all the papers, you know, where you want them. I don't worry about it too much. It's a good idea to use a giant paper clip. Like if you have something like these, you can hold them together while you do this. so they don't get moved around, or you can use a little bulldog clip like that. Just something so you keep them all together, because you want these really kind of tight in the middle, okay? So I know that I'm doing this to the last one, even though it's the first one, okay? So I'm just gonna line this up. So I'm gonna do this just because I'm gonna make a mark on my actual book spine where I need to punch my holes. So I'm gonna go like this here and punch through. Okay, so in that perfect world, those line up with my first, for my first signature. Okay, so there's one. This one's in the middle, so we know it's in the middle. I'm gonna line it where I want it. Make a mark. So this was my center. And I should follow my rule and clip these. Okay, so that's my middle signature. And then my last one. So it's really the first hole, because I'm going to flip that, right? So I'm going to line that up. Make a mark. And then punch my holes that quick. So we have holes punched. Now, the next thing, make sure I'm still at the top. So I'm going to stitch these in. To do that, you can use a variety of things. I have a little box here that I keep all of my book binding stuff in. And so I'm going to use, this is easy to get. This is upholstery thread, so it's really sturdy. So you could use this. This is waxed bookbinding thread, which I also like to use. I think I'm going to use that for this one. And it's just kind of an off-white color, but it's a waxed thread, so it will glide nice. You can also get, you know, waxed beading cord. You could use embroidery floss, something like that. So I've shown this before. I like to use a needle with a blunt end. It doesn't split your thread that way, or at least it's less likely to. If you can't find a blunt tip needle like this, you can make one by getting like a crewel embroidery needle or something like that. And just, if you have some heavy duty cutters out in the garage, cut off the tip so that it's blunt, or just use a nail file or a metal file and file down that edge so it's not sharp. Okay, so I'm going to use this and this. And so I need to go a little more than double the length so that I have room to tie. So I'm just going to cut off a length. Okay, and I don't want my knots to show, so I'm going to start from the back. And I like to start from the middle of the back so that I don't have my knots up high. You can start anywhere along here, but I usually don't do the top or the bottom. So again, this is the last signature, so I'm going to go in the last, go from the back like I just said, and get that through. And then you don't want to pull this, so you kind of want to really hold it there, or you could use a piece of tape and tape it there, or give yourself, you know, plenty of extra sticking there. 'Cause it seems like inevitably that first one, when I go to put it through here, I end up pulling it through almost every time. So I have to be really careful. So I'm going to go through my center hole, making sure I don't pull it there. And I don't have to do it too tight yet, because I'll tighten it up after I get some of these holes through. So then you can go either direction. I'm going to go up through the next hole. And again, getting that through that is a little hard, making sure. And then I'm going to go up to the next hole. Try to find, there we go. Okay, now I want to go back the way I came back in this top one. What you want to end up doing is you're going to have a thread in between each hole on the front and on the back. Whoops, I missed my hole here. Okay, through the actual spine. And then find my hole again. I know it's looking loosey-goosey right now, but we'll tighten it all up. Okay, so back through the same one, and this is why it's good to not have a sharp needle, so that I don't split my threads, because I do need to be able to tighten these up. Okay, so I'm going to go back in my center hole again, trying not to split my thread. And then I want to go the other direction. So we went up, now we're going to go down. So I'm going to go down to the next hole. Make sure I go through the hole. And you can see now that it's kind of on there, it's getting easier. So through the last hole, just kind of. Okay, now I'm in the bottom one. I'm going to go back up through, and then I will have my thread on each of these. Go back through here. Okay, now you just want to make sure it's nice and tight enough, and then I've left it long so that I can make a knot here. So what I like to do is kind of come through the upper one so that I can get some tension on it, and then just make a knot. And this is all going to get, I'm going to use some tape when I'm finished and tape the knots down. So you just want to do it 2 or 3 times so that you know it's really secure. Okay, so that is one done. Okay, you can take that off. That's not too bad, considering what a mess it looked like. And then this one is my center. So same thing, I'm going to just do another one. I think for these last 2, I will fast forward a little bit so that you don't have to watch how slow I am, and put some music to it maybe, so that you don't have to watch this entire thing in its real time. But I'm going to go back up through the middle. So I have my signatures sewn in, and I want to cover up those knots. You could dab a little bit of glue if you're worried about them coming undone, like this one almost did. I cut it a little bit too short. But what I'm going to do is just lay those down, and then if I could find my tape. This is just some from the pharmacy, some medical tape, and I'm just going to tear a piece of that and use it to cover up to stick down my knots. Okay, so those are in there. Okay, we're on the final home stretch here. Not too bad. So I have my journal here. And I'm going to have to do this and let it dry for a little bit, so this won't be in real camera time. Just be aware of that, because this is kind of a critically important, I guess, getting this all so that it's really glued down and dried before you kind of play around with it too much. But my goal here, because I cut this to fit exact, you can see how I've done it where this nestles right in the middle, and I have that little gap that I can feel. I'm going to do one side and then the other. You want to have nearby a couple things. I can use my bone folder. I think will fit in there. Or you can use a credit card. Take an old credit card of some kind, and then you can also do the same thing. You just want to really be able to smooth this out. So I don't want to get too much glue. We know it seeped through the back. Once it did dry, it wasn't a big deal. So I just want to make sure I'm going the right direction here and have that nestled in there nice. And so I'm going to go ahead, because I'm doing this whole thing, I want to put glue on the whole thing. If I was doing just the shorter fabric, I would need to make a mark and just put glue where I want it. So I'm just going to make sure I'm where I want to be here. I'm going to go ahead and use this. You can use PVA glue also. And I'm going to just get some glue down. I don't want to put too much at first. Like I said, if I need to go back and re-glue something, I can, but I want it to be nice and tacky enough and spread out very evenly so I don't get a lot of goopy things through my fabric. I want to get in that edge really well, because that's really going to hold my signatures where I want them. And I can already feel this cover kind of starting to get moist, so it might want to be wonky, so you need some heavy books or something to put down. And I'm just going to lay this here. And find that little crease. I don't know if you can see that, but I can find my little crease here, and I just want to keep working back and forth along that edge. This was all really easy to smooth out, but I really want to make sure that this stays glued down. When you start moving the signatures around it all, it'll lift it. So what I like to do is do one side at a time, then let it dry before I work on the other side. So I'm going to do this here for a minute, longer than I'm going to show on this video. And then what I'm going to do is take something that's non-stick. This is handy, so I might put it here. It's just plastic. But if you have some craft sheet or something that you can put in there, you're going to put it here and then put some heavy weight on this all the way up to the corner here and let that dry. I have some lead weights. You just want to protect so that nothing sticks to, in case glue's seeping through that. You want to go all the way to the edge like this, and then even put more heavier books on. I have these lead weights that I can put, and then just let that set for a while and let that dry. And, you know, however long you need. So I'm gonna let that sit for a bit and then I'll come back and do the other side. Okay, so I'm back. I think this is probably dry enough. And I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes has gone by maybe. Let's see. Yeah, it feels pretty good. It's not a bad idea once I get this finished to let this sit overnight because when you've used a wet medium like glue to glue this down, even though it's dry to the touch and all, I can still feel it in that chipboard, and you don't want that to end up getting kind of bowed. So you want it to really be dried thoroughly, but I'm going to show you why that's kind of important before I do the other side. So you can see where I've been pushing in, you know, you can see some are attached a little better than others, but you want it all the way glued to that edge. Otherwise it starts pulling away. Now, once I get the other side on here, obviously that's going to help. So I can work on this other side. So there we have side one done. And I'm just going to do the same thing and let it set. And then we'll put the spine cover on and get that where we want it. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry fairly well, and then I will be back to put the spine cover on. Okay, I think this is dry enough to add the spine cover. I've waited maybe 10 minutes or so, not long, but I think it feels pretty good. So I will probably go ahead once I have the spine cover on, is maybe let it dry overnight. Now it's going to be bulky because of those buttons, so I have to kind of consider that, but I do want it to stay flat. But you can see how chunky it's going to end up being when it's finished. I can put a closure on here, but it's still going to, you know, end up being pretty fat, but that's okay. I like that. Okay, so to do my spine cover, oh, one other thing, this reminded me. One thing you can do, you see that I used white thread. You can use a colored thread, obviously, if you know you have a color in the center where it's going to show. But one thing that you can do is just take some of your little distressed oxide and just dirty that up a little bit, and then it won't be so glaring. This you might not want to do as much because it's on a light color there, but if you know me, I'm a huge fan of grunge and not a huge fan of bright white. So that there, and then this one. So that just helps it to kind of disappear. Okay, that. And then kind of find the middle here. And figure out the spine cover. And what I can do when I need to let it dry with this on, I can put my books on this side, just have it open and drying that way. So I think I do, even though it's going to be offset, I think I want my buttons in the center, like so. If I do it where the center really is, they would be Actually, that's not even too bad to have them offset just a little bit, because then you do see this edge more. Yeah, I almost think because that way this lays flat a little bit better. Okay, we're just going to go for it. And it will be what it will be. So I have a feeling if I kind of use this as a guide right here. Let me see if that is about half. I don't mind that. So I'm going to start with the spine and just put a little. And actually what I could do, if I wanted it just to be kind of loose, I could not glue. I could just glue here and not put any glue in the middle. Like I said, every project is has a different set of issues. So you kind of really just have to figure out what works for the book you're working on. And like I said, I'm not as concerned about the actual spine part as the front and back being glued down. And that looks okay because I like being able to see some of this. You could draw, you know, I have this scallop shape I'm trying to pay attention to. So you could actually draw it on so that you get the glue right where you need it. But I'm just going to kind of eyeball, and I can go back and add some to those little ends if I need to. But I think that's going to be pretty close. Now, one thing I did do, I didn't show on camera, obviously, because I'd started this already. When you're using an old book, one thing that I like to do is make sure it doesn't smell like an old book before I start using it. Sometimes they're musty or they've been in a home with a smoker or something like that. I want to get rid of all that. So I make sure that is gone before I even start. And there's different ways to do that. You can, you know, put it in a closed something with some baking soda or some lavender if you like the smell of lavender or something like that to kind of help. Leave it outside where it can air out for a period of time, that sort of thing. Make sure it's really clean. They're really grungy. I actually cleaned this ahead of time. It had some kind of spots that like this that weren't great watermarks. So I actually, you know, went ahead and cleaned to kind of even out the color even. But then it just made me feel like I was at least working with something that was clean and not too old and yucky. Okay, so that is looking pretty good. I kind of like that, where it kind of hangs over the edge a little bit. Okay, something different. Okay, that feels pretty good. Oh, it's really sweet. It's another pretty small one. I have big hands, but it's a a cute little book, and I actually like how these are, I like right where they sat. That's just a little bit different. So closure, should I add a closure to this one? I do want to let this sit and dry overnight with some books, I think. But it looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So if I do want to add a closure, now I'm going to use a Crop-A-Dile. You can use just a hand kind of tool. Something like this, where once you've punched your hole, you from the back side and hammer that. But I'm going to use my little Crop-A-Dile here and see how it works. So let's see, I want the small end. So if you've never used one of these, and actually I should maybe measure, I'm going to go in maybe 1/4 inch, and this is about center. And so that I get them the same, you can move this little slider. I'm going to see if it's adjusted where I need it right now. And it is. You can't, this lighting, I have such a bad glare and I wear glasses, so oh, there it is. Okay. So then you punch your hole. Put this in. Oh, I need to get my ribbon first because this is barely going to fit. So what I like to do is figure out whatever ribbon I'm going to use and put it through there first, and then capture it with this. You can also put it through the hole and tie it, but this is just kind of a clean way to capture it. So it'd be nice if I had some lace this color. I don't think that I do, but let me look. Okay, I didn't plan well for this, so let me see. I'm gonna make something. So I'm gonna use, where is it? I like to use this seam binding ribbon, and this is just white because I'm gonna color it. So I'm gonna pull a length much longer than I need. And we're gonna dye this with some Distress Oxides, I think, and try to get this color. Let me see what color I have. Let's see. Tattered Rose. Victorian Velvet. Maybe these two together. And I'm going to be really bad and just use my Distress Oxide one because, oops, which totally is not the good thing to do. This is just a craft mat that actually goes with my Tim Holtz thing. And it's not going to take too much, but you can see I have a little bit of color on there. And then I'm going to use a little bit of water. Where's my spray bottle? And I'll get that nice kind of blushy color. I don't want to touch this. My fingers will get all stained. What do I have? I'm going to use some tweezers so I don't get my fingers too messed up. Could be a lot darker, but that's not bad. Let's see. Okay, I like that. I know it's not showing up much on camera, but I think it's going to be fine. Okay, there's my crinkled up rayon ribbon. And I will, oops, I made a knot. Okay. I'm trying to make sure that I have enough popping through for it to grab on the other side, because this is almost not big enough. So I really have to push. Okay, we're gonna see if that works. Now the other side I need to then squish it. And so let's see. Yeah, it's in there. So those are just barely enough, I'm telling you, for this size of a book. Okay, that's in there, you can see. It was just barely enough to grab on this side, but then you can just trim this off. And it was just a nice clean way to add your tie. And then sometimes you can like use a little bulb pin and dangle some kind of cute little charm on there. You could use something like this and put that on there and then have a cute little charm hanging on it, you know, something like that. So maybe I'll look for something, or put a vintage button, which I've done often. I could even put another one of those if I wanted, and then run this through the shank of the button and then back through here and kind of put a little glue. I've done that before, but I think I'm just going to leave this one like this. So I need to do the same thing on my other side. And my center. It's there. So if I can see. Okay, and then trim that off. And there you have it, a little tie. Okay, I need this to sit and dry a little while longer. So that is my finished cute little book journal. And there's lots of places to decorate, add some decorative, from Decorative Digitals, you know, make little cards and things, clip things, just all kinds of fun stuff. So that's it, my finished little journal. So later on, when I decide I have a few of these and want to sell them, then I will do an Etsy listing with flip throughs and all that so that you can see. But I like how it looks different on the front. Kind of simpler to go with the design that was here. And then it's something more interesting there. And then I get my floral here on this corner. Oh, I like how that turned out cute. Okay, tell me what you think. Leave any questions or anything I wasn't clear on in the comments. And I'm going to move on to another one. I have another cover here. Oops. It has a really thick spine, and which is, I don't know, too thick. That would, I don't think I want to make a little one that thick. What do you think? Maybe tell me what you think. I was thinking of making it a little thinner, cutting this off completely and just making it more of a 1 inch, because that's pretty big. How big is that? That is, oh, it's an inch and a half, a little less than an inch and a half. So maybe not. Maybe I'll leave it that thick. What do you think? And then I think what I was going to put on this one, and that's probably why I was going to make it thinner, but it would work with this. And actually, if I leave that open, you kind of see that through there, and it still has enough to wrap around the front. So what do you think? Should I add some color to this and stitch on it, or just put it on here like it is? That would be super easy. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think I have a fabric I liked for the inside too. That I think, because this paper is in such good shape still, maybe I just take a piece of this, which is a fabric that is old, but not really, I don't know, it's probably vintage, but it was much whiter than this, and I coffee stained it, or rust or something. I tried to grunge it up, but I think the back side of that is really sweet there. So I think I might use this to bind my signatures in, and then just put this here like it is. Maybe not even do any more stitching, because that's really sweet. Okay, that's my next one. Have a great rest of your day, and I go make something. Bye.